glad you all clicked onto this video because I feel like it's very important to say the positives and the negatives and come to a conclusion on whether Undisputed has failed us. But before we do so, I appreciate all your support. For the guys that have been supporting me all the way, sit back, relax, we're going to delve into everything. And I know some of you guys are probably thinking, what are you talking about? The game's definitely failed us. But a lot of people think different. Let's delve into it. Many players consider Undisputed to be the best boxing game available today, even with the noticeable negativity surrounding the game and its community. Expectations were high going into 2023 release, largely because boxing fans have gone over a decade without a true simulation experience. Fight Night Champion being the last major title in the genre. The hunger for a new boxing game was undeniable, and it showed Undisputed sold over 1 million copies in its first week. Since then, the community has developed a strong love-hate relationship with the game, and some would argue the criticism outweighs the praise. We're here to explore that side of the conversation as well. For me, the reason the game is still so widely discussed comes down to one thing: the love of the sport, and many fans would agree. It all began with the first look at ESBC, and it didn't fail to impress. Many fans, myself included, couldn't believe what we were seeing. It finally felt possible to get another true boxing simulation, something on the level of Fight Night from EA, with licensed boxers, stunning visuals, and a level of authenticity we've been waiting years for. And even though EA hasn't been getting the same praise they once did, we can't deny they delivered some of the greatest sports games ever made, with Fight Night Champion still standing out as a classic. But then things shifted. Months later, ESBC took a different direction, rebranding itself as Undisputed. The name wasn't the only thing that changed, the gameplay did too. And that left people confused, and to this day, many still feel disappointed. The community never truly got the true experience what many believed had the potential to be the best boxing game ever made. Eventually, the Undisputed beta launched and players poured in. Compared to today's complaints, the issues back then were mild, and the developers were updating constantly, actively listening to the community's feedback. Fast forward a year later, the game was finally gearing up for its official release date. In all honesty, when the game came out in 2023, I was impressed. But I was more impressed with the simple fact that we had a boxing game. Regards to the game itself, I really enjoyed it in terms of what I felt, the animations, the movement. So this is why a lot of people still say these things to this day with regards to like the movement and stuff in the game. However, down the line came major problems, and I think that's where it all went downhill. I'm going to say a couple. So number one, I believe it started off with the Wilder situation. Many people were complaining, which led to like spamming, which spamming became one of the biggest problems as well in the game itself. Stamina, players not losing any stamina at all, and there was a lot of missing features in the game. So people latched onto this, thought that this is not presenting a true boxing simulation game, and to an extent they are definitely right. But I believe that once all these things were mentioned, everything went downhill. On top of the positives the game originally had, the complaints back then were nowhere near what we have seen today. At launch, no one was really talking about hit registration issues, desync problems, or many of the frustrations that dominate the conversation now. And that's a real shame. As a content creator who once loved covering this game and still does at times, I have to admit that when looking at a bigger picture, many players generally believe Undisputed has failed. And it's hard to argue with their reasons, even considering this is the studio's first major project and they have been trying. A big part of the frustration comes from the studio not offering much in return to the community. Fans expect things like free fighters people actually want, meaningful discounts, or even some kind of compensation for ongoing issues. Instead, the focus often seemed to be on selling DLCs and releasing updates players didn't ask for. From my perspective, the developers become so overwhelmed with the constant changes and growing expectations that they simply couldn't keep up. And unfortunately, that has done real damage to the game's reputation. When it comes to boxing games, it's clear that many developers struggle to deliver a true simulation experience. After browsing through Steam, Nothing really stood out, and that's unfortunate. Honestly, if a genuinely authentic boxing sim existed, Undisputed probably wouldn't even be in the spotlight right now. And I'm just being honest. Oh, guys, this conclusion's going to be pretty much of a crazy one. So we are going to say whether Undisputed has failed the community, and unfortunately it has. It has failed in many ways. However, it had the potential to be the greatest boxing game of all time. And in my opinion, I do believe that many people do play this game due to the love of the sport, and there's no other boxing game out right now. So as I said throughout the video, just imagine if there was another boxing game out, this game wouldn't be played. And that's bad, because you do need some competition. And with all the issues that have been happening with the game and still current, it's still not being fixed to this day. Unfortunately, it will go down as a failure, you know, such as like the desync, the majors that hurt this game, because we're not all asking for perfection. We're not asking for, you know, all the things in the world that happens in real life boxing to be inside the game, but it needs to be close enough to be called a simulation boxing game. And unfortunately, Undisputed doesn't tick most of the boxes. And many people will agree. I'm just being honest, as I will always play from time to time for the love of the sport. I am a bit disappointed that we are here, because Undisputed could and should have been the biggest boxing game to be released, in my opinion. You know, selling over 1 million copies within a week is pretty insane. So that's my overall conclusion, and yeah, nothing else to say.